and welcome to VLGA Connect, and we're in conversation today with Commissioner SueAnne Hunter from the Yoo-rrook Justice Commission, and joining us for the conversation, Kathryn Arndt from the VLGA. Hi, Kathryn.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Very well, thank you. The Yoo-rrook Justice Commission was announced a few months ago by the state government. It's an historic royal commission looking at two streams of truth-telling with relation to the way Aboriginal people have suffered injustice over the years. Why is this an important topic for the VLGA, do you think?
Look, I think I think it's a very important topic for all Victorians, and also, as we'll hear from the Commissioner, there are other jurisdictions looking with great interest in the work of this particular commission. From the VLGA's perspective, of course, the local government sector is closest to the community, and part of the work of this commission will be to consult with the community, both Aboriginal people in the community, but also non-Aboriginal people. Local government will have a role to play in potentially facilitating some of those conversations, but also connecting the work that it does with those members of the community that are First Nations people and Aboriginal Victorians. It also does and will inform the treaty making process that local government is very interested in, I guess, understanding more about. As we know, we do predict that the treaty making process will include the establishment of local treaties, so not just one statewide treaty, and that of course will have an impact for local government. So very relevant indeed, Chris.
Thank you for setting the scene so nicely there, Kathryn. Let's bring in our guest, Commissioner SueAnne Hunter. Welcome to VLGA Connect. SueAnne Hunter, Commissioner from the Yoo-rrook Justice Commission. SueAnne is a Wurundjeri and Nire Ilum Warang woman. I hope I've done that justice, SueAnne. Welcome to the program.
You have. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me so we can get the word out about the Commission.
Very good to have you here. And of course, Kathryn is with us as well, VLGA CEO. And I know Kathryn is keen to ask you some questions about the work of the Commission. Just set the scene for us, SueAnne, firstly, if you don't mind. You've been up and running for a few months now?
Since May the 14th, it was the commissioners were announced, but there's been a lot of background work before that. So the First Peoples Assembly really lobbying for a Truth and Justice Commission. That's never happened in Australia before, so it's really exciting that we have the very first one in Victoria. And so we were appointed on the 14th of May this year, when I think all the commissioners met the day before. So there's 5 of us, 5 commissioners, 3 being Victorian traditional owners. There's another Aboriginal woman, a Palawa woman, who I'm happy to talk about names and stuff in a minute, but she's from Tasmania, and a former Supreme Court judge as well, who's not Aboriginal. So it's the first time a Royal Commission's actually been Aboriginal led. So it's really exciting. Victoria
certainly is leading the way, you know, firstly with the treaty legislation of 2019, I think it was, if I've got that correct. And then, of course, the establishment of the First Peoples Assembly. We've had the pleasure of having Geraldine, one of the co-chairs of the First Peoples Assembly, on our program previously. And it's a great pleasure, SueAnne, to have you here today to hear all about the work of the Commission and what you hope to achieve.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Like I said before, it's timely, and we've just started. COVID's been a bit impeding, but we are getting there. It's going to be a long journey. It's a lot to fit in 3 years, so I'm happy to knock that out and what this means for you all.
Well, that would be really interesting as a starting point. What is the timeline that we're looking at here?
Yeah, so we have been given, so it runs off a letters patent as any other Royal Commission. So you've got these guidelines and deadlines that you must meet, and there's things you must do within the Commission. So the timelines is, so May the commissioners were announced. July 2021, the actual commission begun. And then June 2022 is our interim report, which isn't that far away really. And then June 2024, we deliver the final report. It sounds like a long time, But if we get back to our mandate, which is the letters patent, it's not a long time.
No.
Yeah.
Now, these things, they look like there's a long tail to them, but it goes pretty quickly. So you're in that first phase, SueAnne, of getting ready for your interim report next year. What does that look like in terms of the tasks in front of you?
Well, the tasks in front of us, and I don't know if people know this about Royal Commissions, and I'm learning very quickly, never sat on one myself, is that we've got to set everything up. So we don't even come with premises, we don't come with a set up IT system, we don't come with staff. So we've started to do all of the background work and the setup work in between. Probably the commissioners have been in person for probably a total of 2 weeks since then, which isn't long, isn't a long time. So we've had to get to know each other online, which has been pretty difficult. So we've currently been working on, one of the differences with this commission is community consultation. So we have to nut out what our sort of mandate is and put it in and bring it down to a community level of what people want, and be able to incorporate that into a 3-year Royal Commission about how we do and set that. So our work will be led by the community. And I think one of the things I always say is we are the facilitators of voice. I don't see us anything other than that. So at the heart is the Yoo-rrook telling, which is truth telling. So Yoo-rrook is wamba wamba, a word for truth. So the Yoo-rrook telling and justice is at the centre of all that we do. And those stories will actually guide where our lines of inquiry will go and what we need to look at. So within the letters patent, we do have 7 clear objectives, which I'm happy to unpack for you as well as we go along.
Sure, and you were selected by an independent panel, I recall reading. So the panel was clearly looking for a mix of knowledge and skills. Can you just talk about the different skill sets you and your fellow commissioners bring to the table?
So there's 5 commissioners, and Arndt Burke, Professor Arndt Burke, I should say. And I you have to throw in a commissioner now. So Commissioner Professor Arndt Burke, I'm not sure which order that comes in. She's the chairperson of the commission, and she's a wamba wamba woman and comes with years of experience in academia and amazing. Even in a short time, I've learned a very lot of Arnie Eleanor. Then there's Dr. Wayne Atkinson, who previously did some truth-telling work with my dad a long time ago. My dad's since passed, but they took stories of the elders at the time. So it was for the Melbourne Museum. So it sort of fits for me, which is lovely. And he's a historian, academic, amazing man. And then there's myself, and so my background is in social work, clinical, family therapist, worked in child and family welfare for the past 20 years, advocate of child's rights, lots of community activity. So we are the 3 traditional owners of Victoria that were appointed. Then there is Professor Maggie Walter, or Distinguished Professor Maggie Walter, I should say. What Maggie brings is something a Royal Commission's never had before, and that is around data sovereignty and how we collect data and how we keep it. And the more I sit in that space and learn around, we have to set up this whole computer system that allows for that, and it's different. And in that space, if we liken it to the Royal Commission around the Bringing Them Home report, where people see everybody's stories, it's sort of open and people can take what they want. This is a bit more, this is going to be a lot more secure in people owning their own stories and truths. And then the last person is the Honourable Kevin Bell, who is a former Supreme Court judge who brings the legal expertise to the Commission, and so much more. So there is a lot of skill set and knowledge in different areas that we all have different points of view, and it's great we can have these discussions about what we think things might look like before we put them out consultation.
Certainly a distinguished group of commissioners, and I congratulate all of you on your appointment. So, SueAnne, tell us a little bit about that community consultation process. And I know you've only just started to talk about what that might look like, but it'd be really useful to hear more about that.
Well, just today, I think we've finalised our strategic priorities, which I'm not going to put out there just yet, but because it's a big mandate, we do want to know what community would like to focus on and what are priorities in the eyes of the community, because this is 200 years in the making. This is our story, not just one or two individuals. It's the whole story of Victoria, like ours as a state. And so we want to do justice to understand what the priority is for the community and how they would like to see what sort of order things come in, or if we've missed anything, or are they happy? So yeah, and part of the letters patent has community consultation in that. We also received a report from the First Assembly, and so they did some consultations around what people would like to see. So we've got that as a guiding light, and we have put that into sort of strategic planning that we're doing at the moment.
So will you see that the work that your commission does then leading into or informing the treaty making process, or are they standalone activities? I guess that's a really interesting question. Yeah,
it is. And people think we are the Assembly. We're actually impartial from government or the Assembly. So we sit alone. We will be meeting with both though to inform them of where we're at and what's going on. But the work we're doing will help inform a framework and a process for treaty, so that by time we finish, this is the first time ever in a Royal Commission we'll have a treaty process running alongside. So when we finish, the treaty process will be able to assist in implementing these recommendations. So also the recommendations aren't going to be hidden. We want people's feedback on them, and we want to know. So we don't want any hidden surprises. We want to be as transparent as possible. And we will be, when we come around to that time, which I can't even think of yet, it's all so much to do. But when we do come to that, and there might be a few in between that we find early, and we put in the interim report to government as well.
SueAnne, what struck me in reading about how this commission's been set up is there's two broad streams of work, is how it's been described, the contemporary and the historical. How much of a challenge is it going to be to separate those, or will you indeed try to separate them? Because there must be crossover.
There will be crossover, and I think this is the challenge. Do you do the commission on a timeline, or do you do it thematically? Everything connects. And part of the piece that we have is the establishment of official public record. And so how we establish that record will link everything. They aren't separate. They run into each other, and the ongoing injustices are same but look different. And so we will unpack what that means and what that looks like. So it's long time. So it starts in the letters patent say 1788 to contemporary. I guess we have to draw a line at where contemporary starts, which we're discussing at the moment, to where history is, because you have to draw a line. And I don't know if there is any theory behind where you draw that line or what that means, but there will be a line drawn, but it doesn't mean that they won't overlap.
Quite a mammoth task that the Commission has.
Yeah. And look, the enormity of it and the responsibility of it is not lost on us in any way, shape or form. I feel like I'm living at my Zoom computer at the moment, but these it's just amazing to be able to have these rich, full discussions with people without having to filter anything, or we want truth coming forward. We want the bare bones of it, and people have been I think we're setting the tone in the Commission that we can have these discussions without people feeling guilty or people feeling sad, because let's remember, it's not just the trauma, it's the resilience of our people, it's the survival, and there's rich stories in there that we can take back as well. So there's both sides. Yeah,
I wondered about that aspect of it, because I've heard it described a couple of times as it's going to be confrontational for people. How much of your thinking so far has been how you manage that aspect of the material that you're going to be dealing with?
Yeah, so my background really is in trauma. So I've done a lot of training here and overseas on trauma and healing as well. So that social emotional wellbeing space is really, really critical. And I think we've done maybe 6 so far Zoom meetings with traditional owners. And that's been one of the biggest questions, how we're going to support people. We have our social emotional wellbeing directive that starts next week, yay. And so we'll be mapping and nutting out. The one thing that I'm very clear on is we have before, during and after around that social emotional wellbeing space for not only staff, not only people that come forward and community, but staff or anybody that interacts with the commission. And there is going to be stories, horrific, sad stories. And we need to make sure that everybody is in a space that they're able to process and take on board, because how do you analyse all this data? And it's data, really. The stories are our data, if we want to put it that way. How do we analyse that if we're overcome with grief and sorrow? So we need to make sure that everybody's looked after.
So SueAnne, mindful that our audience is primarily local government, how do you see, if at all, local councils perhaps being a part of this, or your work intersecting with what councils are doing on a daily basis?
I think one of the things we have to remember in the Commission is that there may be notice to produce to some of the councils. So being prepared for that, that there may be something in your area that's uncovered that we want to investigate further. I think if they aren't already understanding the rich history that's in their areas, what does that mean? What does it look like? Do staff know the local history? Do they know, like looking that a little bit further? And also being, you know, if there's stuff that's not right, how do you make that right within your own area? And what does that look like? Being inclusive of First Peoples within that area, and, you know, are there sites that need to be recognised and celebrated, or are there sites within the area that we need to be aware of that aren't so great, but still recognising that that happened within your area? That's about truth telling as well. And it's not just up to us as Aboriginal and First Peoples to do that. If someone uncovers something, you know, we expect non-Aboriginal people to come forward with their stories as well. Maybe it might be about their people before them and what was happened on their land, and, you know, they may still have artifacts, or they may know of something on their farm, or who knows. But, you know, I think that's really brave if people can take the step before we get there.
Indeed. And look, local government have been quite, I guess, proactive in this space for, you know, more so than other sectors. And that's because they are the grassroots level of government and, you know, representing multiple stakeholders in their community. There is a Victorian Aboriginal local government action plan or strategy that's being finalised at the moment that does have particular responsibilities for local government. One of the things I was pleased to hear about this morning, actually, in another meeting, was the establishment of a Koori network. So it's a support network for all Aboriginal and First Nations employees of local government, because often there's only 1 or 2 in the council. And so this is a group of all of those staff from across Victoria coming together in a culturally safe and sensitive network, which is being supported by, I can't think of the acronym of the department that's supporting that at the moment, but how important that is, going back to your comments before about, you know, well-being and safety, and, you know, the important role that these staff will also have in this, but not only as an employee of the council, but also as an Aboriginal person and member of that community.
I think that's a great initiative, and that's what we want people to make those initiatives themselves, and I think that shows the goodwill. One of the things I heard someone was telling me the other day, within their RAP, they've actually put a section for truth telling. So how can they support truth telling within their own areas? And it's not linked to the commission, but it is linked in the space of, yeah, that's what, before we can move forward, we need the truth telling and the justice to be able to move forward in that way. So I thought that was a great initiative.
That's a really good point, SueAnne, and I'm not sure how many councils would have that truth-telling aspect in their reconciliation action plans. That's probably a bit of homework for us to do, because it sounds like a logical next step, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. And it's not until you really get into it that you think about, you're like, hang on, that is the next step. And so, you know, you can do the work, some of that work for us. And so, you know, and bring it forward. You might uncover something that you want the commission to know. You know, this isn't a witch hunt. This is truth telling. And this is our Victoria together. And how do we move forward if we can't tell the truth and find justice? So.
Indeed. And I think, Chris, you're right. That is something that our members can take away and have a look at as a really positive, proactive step and a simple step, because as you say, SueAnne, this isn't meant to be overwhelming and complex. It's about people working together, you know, to tell the story. The VLGA, together with Reconciliation Victoria, have been running an annual program called the Helping Achieve Reconciliation Together Awards program since about 2014, I think it is. And those awards are recognising initiatives such as the RAP example you've just provided, that local community groups and also local governments are putting in place to progress reconciliation. And there's been some wonderful stories that have come through from the nominations that we receive in those award process, but also the winners. So there could be some useful information and data too, you know, from our historical archives in regard to that.
Yeah, and we're going to have to look at all those historical archives across the board. And I think one of the things is we can't go back there. So we'll need all those stories previously heard and told, and you know, the work of our ancestors that have done all this to get us here, their work will come into play as well. And unless we lay it out bare on the table for all of us to say, there is no moving forward. You know, yeah, it's going to be hard and it's going to hurt, but then you can move forward.
SueAnne, perhaps one last question. We've mentioned a couple of times today how Victoria is leading the way with this process. Do you get a sense that other jurisdictions in Australia are watching this to see how it plays out, and that there might be others follow Victoria's lead?
Yeah, so some other states are underway with treaty processes. I think truth-telling is a big discussion point at the moment. I know not only are the other states watching, can I just say the world is watching. And so this is the first time in a Truth and Justice Commission that's been so broad. Now, if we look at Canada, they had cultural genocide. We actually just have genocide. So it's big. And we're looking at making structural reforms. It says it in our letters patent, and we can make reforms too. So we are going to leave no stone unturned. We're looking at all these structures and systems that continue to oppress. And we'll come out with, hopefully, and I shouldn't say hopefully, we will come out with recommendations, because we will be putting those recommendations out to try and test, to make sure that we get this right. And it's huge. It's the eyes of the world are watching. So someone from Colombia has contacted me, and someone from Norway. And so there's lots of people around the world watching how Victoria goes, and I think we can do this justice.
The responsibility is immense, but also exciting and hopeful. And from the VLGA's perspective, this platform that you've kindly joined us on today is open to you and the other commissioners, and any time you'd like to share, any story or consult with our members through, particularly the local government sector, we'd be more than happy to facilitate that.
Yeah, that would be great. We need partnerships along the way. We can't do this all alone, and we're really clear of that. And we will be making partnerships along the way. So maybe this is one platform that we can pop on and let people know where we're at, what we're doing, or maybe even some things, things that people can do in their areas.
Indeed.
Fabulous. Look forward to keeping the discussion going, SueAnne. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. And we'll definitely be back and watch this space as we start to move along.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Well, that's been a pretty wide-ranging discussion there, Kathryn. It's probably a bit more broad than I thought. So much to unpack, but a really important conversation to have. Really
important, Chris, and I think it's just the first of many more conversations, and the VLGA looks forward to perhaps being able to support and facilitate some of those.
Thanks for joining me for that very special edition today. We have more joint conversations coming your way very soon from VLGA Connect. Stay tuned, and we'll see you again soon.